todos, estamos en el Potrero, Chico.
See.
How'd I do?
Good enough.
Finally, we're out and about exploring again, so we have a lot to talk about in this episode.
First off, most of you probably have no idea what or where El Potrero Chico is. It is a world-famous climbing destination that towers above the small town of Hidalgo in the state of Nuevo León. We picked this as our first stop because it allowed us to be around a bunch of outdoor enthusiasts and kind of slowly ease back into being active again.
So to get back into the swing of things, the first thing we did was take a walk up the road that goes into the mountains.
Potrero Chico.
I was immediately impressed by how tall the mountains surrounding us were. When I think of Mexico, I think of a big, flat desert, and it never really occurred to me that there are such grand mountains. As we were walking up this road, Kendrick noticed on Google Maps that there was a place that roughly translated to birth of water. Well, of course we had to check that out.
When we finally reached the spring, we discovered water just rushing out of the hillside and flowing into a man-made aqueduct that dates back to the 1920s.
And on our way back from the spring, we stopped at a 600-year-old tree. 600. The next item on our agenda was climbing, since we're in a climbing area. I begged Kendrick to take me out on the rocks for one day.
I was pretty hesitant to go out climbing because I have not really climbed in about a year or so, and I knew it would be a frustrating experience. It's always hard to get back out on the rock after you've been out of practice for a long time, but in the end, it's worth it.
After having explored the mountains, I wanted to walk through the little nearby town to see what just typical life was like.
We went to the main square in Hidalgo and walked around from vendor to vendor, basically gorging ourselves on food.
Spicy! And of course, after gorging ourselves on food, it was time for lunch. So we stopped at the nearest restaurant that smelled good and went in for a bite to eat.
After our meal, the owner of the restaurant showed just how nice and patient she was whenever I spent 30 minutes fumbling around in my broken Spanglish just talking with her.
En su idioma hay palabras que significan lo mismo.
After the first few days, I had been getting a little frustrated that I hadn't been really taking any photographs. So we decided to look on Google Maps and just see what was around us. And that's when we found something called Ex Hacienda del Muerto, which is the House of the Dead. I mean, that sounds cool, right?
I don't think there was any dead people in it.
I hope not. This building was really cool and unique. It was a church situated at the foot of some mountains, and it was surrounded by kind of disintegrating adobe structures.
For 4 days, we had been looking up at the summit of a mountain called El Toro from our camp spot, and we finally decided to hike up there.
Well, Kendrick decided to hike up there and drag me with him.
Yeah, we decided.
Well, it is Christmas Eve, and we have a lovely Christmas Eve dinner planned ahead of us. So to earn it, we figured we should go hiking. So we're gonna head up that. Because it's like the tallest peak around here.
So we did like any prepared hikers would do. We sat around, drank coffee, and waited until noon when it got nice and hot, and then we finally hit the trail for a 5-hour hike. Heading up El Toro, which is Spanish for the Toro.
And it was hot and steep.
And sharp. There's a lot of sharp, sticky, pokey, proddy, piercing, scraping things in the desert.
Oh my gosh, this is like really steep. We're out of shape.
A little bit.
But when we got to the top, I think the view made it all worth it. As always, you were right.
I know. Near the top of El Toro, we ran into a group of 5 people setting up what's called a highline. Now, a highline is about a 1-inch wide piece of webbing connecting 2 points way up in the air. Essentially, the person tight ropes between the 2 points.
And of course, they offered to let us join them. And for those of you saying that we never show any kind of restraint, I will have you know we politely declined and decided to just watch instead. Because I wasn't about to do that.
After hanging out with the highliners for about an hour, it was finally time to head back down because we had a Christmas Eve dinner waiting on us.
Christmas Eve dinner was unique. This was the biggest Christmas celebration we got here in Mexico, and it was pretty fun. The campground hosted a dinner where they served us turkey and pork and potatoes and a big dessert bar with bottomless wine and pretty much just an all-around good time. And of course, like any Christmas Eve should end, this one ended with a piñata. And finally, it was Christmas. Feliz Navidad! I think Christmas was weird this year for us both, just not being with friends and family, but we did get to FaceTime with everybody.
Awesome! Well, it was really great to talk with both of our families on Christmas Day. We're both pretty excited and pretty grateful for the opportunity we have to be down exploring Mexico.
Our Christmas evening began by stopping by Edgardo's, who has a trailer serving margaritas and pizza. So we began with margaritas for me and beer for Kendrick. We are walking up the road in our Santa hats because it's Christmas and we have nothing else to do. So we're going to go seek out some margaritas.
You speak Spanish? Un poquito. Okay.
Alright, now that we have our margaritas and cervezas, it's time for dinner!
I don't have a margarita or cerveza.
He finished his, don't let him fool you. We then headed to dinner number 1 at El Taco Loco, where I got pirata barbacoas.
And I got pirata chicharron.
So dinner number 1 was amazing, and I think it's Christmas, so we get dinner number 2. So we're headed to what we hear is the best tacos in town at Leo's Tacos.
Leo, I'm not really sure. Hooray, tacos! At Leo's Tacos, they have basically a single menu item for the day. You pay 150 pesos, and it's all you can eat. In hindsight, we should have went there first. It was definitely one of the most unique Christmases we've ever had. Being in another country, away from family, and it was almost 80 degrees outside.
But as long as you're with someone you love, that's all that matters.
Aww. El Potrero Chico has been a great first stop for us in Mexico. We're both feeling pretty out of shape and out of practice when it comes to running, hiking, climbing, and pretty much anything outdoors. So this has been a good place for us to get over some of those early frustrations that come with easing back into our hobbies.
For me, I've felt the frustration of the pressure that comes along with having a job kind of based in social media and feeling like I need to be producing great content right away. So it's been frustrating for me just trying to allow myself the time to get back into my hobby and create great content for you. So here's to finding our groove in Mexico. Amor y luz. Yes, this fly is driving me insane.